I spent nearly 18 months developing a cutting-edge cybersecurity system that could predict and neutralize threats before they ever breached a firewall. When I joined Summit Core Solutions, a sleek startup nestled in Denver, Colorado, it felt like the perfect environment to bring this vision to life. Well-funded, innovation-driven, and full of promise. What I didn't know was that CEO Russell Kane had a plan of his own: wait until my work was nearly done, and then take everything. My name is Danielle Cho, and until just yesterday, I was the lead artificial intelligence developer at Summit Core. I'm 46 years old, and I left behind a stable, high-paying role at Oracle to pursue something more meaningful. I brought with me 2 decades of experience and a blueprint for a next-gen defense system I called Sentinel Edge, an AI designed to detect and adapt to cyber threats before they could even make contact. For a year and a half, I gave the project everything. Long days, sleepless nights, and weekends spent debugging code instead of catching up with friends. Sentinel Edge wasn't just a system, it was a shield, constantly learning, evolving, staying one step ahead of hackers in real time. Russell would drop in occasionally, always with that polished executive demeanor. "Fantastic work, Danielle," he'd say, nodding toward the performance charts I'd pin on the wall. "The board is thrilled." But there was something hollow behind his smile, something that made me uneasy. Then, just 3 days ago, Sentinel Edge passed its biggest test yet. It detected and stopped a highly advanced simulated cyber attack, all without human intervention. Not only did it work flawlessly, but it also uncovered vulnerabilities I hadn't even programmed it to look for. The AI was adapting on its own. It was a breakthrough. A revolution. Eager to share the results, I scheduled a meeting with Russell. His executive assistant, Gina, squeezed me in for a short 15-minute slot the next day. When I walked into his office, I was surprised to see not only Russell, but also Harper Vance, the company's legal counsel, already seated. "Take a seat," Danielle, Russell said, gesturing toward the chair across the table. His tone was formal. "Harper's just here for a quick formality." A knot formed in my stomach. I opened my laptop, ready to demonstrate Sentinel Edge in action, but Russell held up a hand. "Before we get into that, we need to go over something in your contract." He slid a document toward me. Harper spoke next, her voice cool and controlled. "Section 12.6 of your employment agreement states that any intellectual property developed while employed by Summit Core, using its tools and resources, is the sole property of the company." I nodded slowly. I'm familiar with standard IP clauses, but Sentinel Edge wasn't born here. I developed the core architecture independently, well before I accepted the position. I've got proof, timestamps, notes, even a provisional patent. Harper didn't flinch. Regardless, the functioning system, the prototype that works, was built here, on Summit Core's servers, with Summit Core's equipment. Russell leaned in, dropping the act. "Let's not dance around it. Sentinel Edge is Summit Core property. The board feels your contribution has been well compensated." My eyebrows lifted. "Compensated?" "You'll be receiving a one-time success bonus," he said. $300,000 upon product launch. "That's very generous, Danielle, more than most get for something like this." I sat in silence. $300,000. For something that would bring in billions in funding, licensing, government contracts. For a system I had nurtured like a child. For 18 months of 80-hour weeks, working holidays, missing birthdays, and pouring my entire being into this invention. Russell smiled thinly. "Tomorrow, I'll be unveiling Sentinel Edge to a panel of major investors. We're confident we'll secure another $75 million in Series C funding. After that, we'll roll out the official launch." I stared at the man who just casually stripped me of everything I'd built. And in that moment, I made a silent vow. This story isn't ending here. I stared at Russell Kane, hands tightening into fists. "You're firing me?" I asked, voice low. Harper Vance didn't even blink. "We're transitioning you out, effective immediately. Of course, with your bonus." Congratulations, Danielle. Russell gave a smug nod, like a predator satisfied after cornering its prey. Your employment is officially terminated, he said with finality. But what neither of them realized was that I had seen this betrayal coming. And Sentinel Edge? Let's just say I had woven in a few surprises of my own. By legal terms, the core software did belong to Summit Core. I'd read the fine print the day I signed my contract. I could have fought back right there, threatened litigation, raised my voice, caused a scene. That's what they expected. That's what they were prepared for. But I wasn't just a developer. I was a strategist. 6 months earlier, I'd been working late when I received an automated alert, unauthorized access to my private development server. Someone had poked around after hours. Nothing was stolen. No code was modified. But the fact that Russell had bypassed my encryption told me everything I needed to know about what was coming. From that moment on, I had stopped building Sentinel Edge for Summit Core. I started building it to protect Sentinel Edge from the outside, yes, but also from within. I nodded and kept my expression neutral. Of course, Mr. Kane, I said smoothly, handing over my company laptop. Security watched closely as I packed my belongings into a standard cardboard box. I didn't cry. I didn't argue. I walked out like any other corporate discard. But unlike most, I didn't leave empty-handed. My thumb brushed the USB key in my coat pocket, the real Sentinel Edge, the one I'd secured offline months ago. As I exited the building, I allowed myself the smallest smile, thinking about the demo version Russell would be showing to investors tomorrow. What he didn't know was that I had embedded a little surprise in the code, an invisible timer set to trigger exactly 10 minutes into the presentation. That night, I didn't panic. I didn't spiral into revenge fantasies. I ordered Thai takeout, watched reruns of Frasier, and waited. At 9:30 p.m., my phone rang. It was Gina, Russell's assistant. He wants to see you, she said flatly. It's urgent. I glanced at the clock. It's almost 10. A car is already en route. 40 minutes later, I was back at Summit Core, escorted into the sleek glass conference room. Russell was alone. His usual corporate sheen was gone, tie loosened, hair disheveled, one sleeve wrinkled from stress. He looked like a man unraveling. Fix it, he snapped the moment the door closed behind me. I took my time sitting down, slow and deliberate. Fix what exactly? Don't play games, Danielle, he hissed. You sabotaged the demo. I raised an eyebrow. I've been gone for 24 hours. Security watched me pack. I didn't take any devices. I didn't touch your systems. Russell slammed his palm on the table. The demo crashed the entire environment. It flagged dozens of non-existent threats. It triggered over 10,000 false positives across our internal systems. It's completely unusable. I tilted my head, pretending to think. Sounds like a technical glitch. Have you tried rebooting it? His face flushed, a vein pulsing at his temple. This isn't funny. We have 12 major investors flying in tomorrow. $75 million is on the line. Your investors, I corrected. Your system. He took a deep breath, trying to reel in his temper. The next words were smoother, more calculated. Look, he said, perhaps we were hasty. I'm willing to discuss a more equitable arrangement, co-creator credit, a higher compensation package, maybe even equity. I leaned back, folding my arms. What exactly happened during the test run? Russell hesitated, then reluctantly confessed. The system turned on itself. It flagged Summit Core's own network components as threats. It triggered lockdown protocols. Even the executive email server was quarantined. It was chaos. I smiled, just enough for him to notice. You built that system on trust, Russell, I said quietly. But you never earned mine. Over 500 reports, Russell said, his voice low and tight, flipping through the documents on the tablet screen in front of him. Each one documenting what Sentinel Edge identified as internal, ethical breaches. I didn't answer right away. I didn't need to. Instead, I offered a small, calm smile. Sentinel Edge is doing exactly what it was designed to do: identify threats. All threats. Russell's jaw clenched. What did you do? I didn't sabotage anything, I replied, tone cool. Sentinel Edge isn't malfunctioning. It's working perfectly. During development, I trained it on thousands of real-world attack scenarios, including insider threats. I fed it data on corporate espionage, sabotage, data theft. Things that happen when the threat doesn't come from outside a company, but from within. His face lost all color. You taught it to spy on us? I leaned forward slightly. I taught it to recognize risk, wherever that risk originates. For a moment, Russell sat in stunned silence as the realization settled over him. The system hadn't failed. It had flagged Summit Corps' own leadership, specifically him, as the source of unauthorized access, shady file movements, and unexplained document modifications. His voice was low, defensive now. You can't prove any of that. I don't need to, I said. Sentinel Edge has been quietly logging everything for the past 6 months. Every breach, every unauthorized login attempt, every file you copied from my development environment after hours. It's all there, timestamped, traced, and documented. With keystroke logs. The room went silent. He stared at me, the fury in his expression slowly fading into something more careful. More calculating. What do you want? He finally asked. I folded my hands calmly on the table. Full recognition as Sentinel Edge's creator and principal architect. 50% ownership of all intellectual property and patents. A board seat to ensure its ethical implementation. And $10 million in compensation for your attempt to erase me. His jaw twitched. That's extortion. No, I said, voice steady. That's negotiation. Extortion would be me sending those files to your board, your investors, or federal regulators. Russell exhaled sharply. His eyes burned into me, but he knew I wasn't bluffing. Finally, his shoulders slumped ever so slightly. Can you fix it? He muttered. Before the demo? I tilted my head. There's nothing to fix. Sentinel Edge is flagging unauthorized inputs because you removed its creator from the authentication chain. It's not broken, it's resisting abuse. I reached into my coat pocket and set a flash drive on the table between us. This contains a temporary authorization patch. It'll bypass the current lockout and restore normal functionality for the demo. He stared at the drive. And this is your idea of a good faith gesture? It's my idea of giving you a chance to start over, correctly, I said. The full contracts can be drafted tomorrow. But for now, you get your shiny investor demo. And if I say no, then Sentinel Edge stays as it is. You walk into that demo with a system that crashes itself. And those 500 reports? They'll find new homes. With people very interested in how you've been handling internal security. Russell looked at me. I could see him calculating his odds, measuring what he thought he could get away with. But in the end, he reached for the flash drive. You planned all of this, he muttered. I gave a small shrug. I didn't want to. But when you accessed my secure dev folder 6 months ago, I realized I had to protect not just the system, but myself. His eyes narrowed. How did you know I'd try to cut you out? I stood and picked up my bag. I didn't, I said. But Sentinel Edge was designed to recognize patterns and predict threats before they fully form. I gave him one last pointed look. I guess some of that rubbed off on me. The next morning, I walked back through the doors of Summit Corps, not as an employee, but as co-founder and chief technology officer. Russell introduced me to the investors with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. And the demo? Flawless. Sentinel Edge intercepted every simulation, adapted on the fly, and delivered performance that left the room in awe. The funding came through before lunch. Sometimes, the best revenge doesn't involve shouting or lawsuits. Sometimes, it's walking into a room full of power players, shaking hands, and watching the man who tried to erase you introduce you as his equal. The presentation ran with elegant precision. One investor, clearly impressed, turned to Russell Kane, eyes wide with curiosity. "Amazing system," he said. "What inspired its development?" Russell hesitated just long enough for me to enjoy the moment. Then, with barely concealed reluctance, he replied, "It was actually Danielle's brainchild, her vision from the beginning. Summit Core just provided the environment for that vision to flourish." I gave a polite smile and stepped in to handle the technical questions, shifting the spotlight away from him with practiced ease. As I spoke, my phone buzzed discreetly. A message appeared on screen. "Sentinel Edge authentication restored. Threat neutralized. System integrity secured. Creator protections active." The AI was learning faster than even I had predicted. It had recognized a threat, neutralized it, and secured its environment, just as it was designed to do. 3 months later, Sentinel Edge had its first commercial deployment. It prevented what could have been a devastating cyber attack on a global banking network. Industry analysts estimated the attack might have caused over $340 million in damages. Instead, the incident solidified Sentinel Edge's reputation as the new gold standard in cybersecurity. Russell and I continued to work together, but strictly professionally. He focused on business development, where his charisma actually had value. I led the technical vision, where my contributions were irreplaceable. We weren't friends. We never would be. But we had reached an understanding. Sometimes I wondered if I should have taken him to court, fought the battle through legal channels. Maybe I could have won even more. But the truth is, I had built something too powerful to be stolen, and I had ensured that no one, not even Russell, could ever control it without me. His betrayal taught me something deeper than mistrust. It taught me that technology is only as ethical as the people who control it. That realization became the core of how we now implement Sentinel Edge. Every deployment includes ethical guardrails, transparency protocols, and internal threat monitoring that can't be disabled, even by executives. The system doesn't just protect networks. It protects itself and the people who depend on it. Just last week, we celebrated Sentinel Edge's public offering. Valuation: $4.2 billion. At the event, as champagne flowed and press cameras flashed, a young developer fresh out of grad school walked up to me. Her eyes were bright with ambition. "What's the secret?" she asked. "To building something this revolutionary?" I smiled and leaned in. "It's not just about the code," I said. "It's about understanding that the greatest threats don't always come from outside. The real challenge wasn't just creating a brilliant system, it was designing something that could adapt, evolve, and protect its own integrity no matter who tried to misuse it. Build systems that know how to protect themselves," I added. "And never forget to build yourself the same way." She nodded, thoughtful. I turned back toward the crowd, glancing at my phone again. A new notification had appeared. "System integrity secured. Threat neutralized. Protections active." Just as Sentinel Edge was built to do. Just as I had learned to do. "Now, I want to hear from you." After everything I went through, being underestimated, pushed out, nearly erased from my own creation, I came out stronger, smarter, in control of my future. But I didn't get there alone. I had my experience, my instincts, and most importantly, I had the conviction to protect what I had built. But what would you have done in my place? Would you have walked away and started over? Would you have taken Russell to court? Or would you have done what I did, turn the tables from the inside and force your value to be recognized? Tell me in the comments. I want your advice, your insights, your stories of standing up when someone tried to take what was yours. Because no matter how powerful a system is, whether it's a company, a codebase, or your own career, the greatest defense will always be the courage to protect what you've built. And trust me, I read every word. I've shared this story not just to talk about workplace betrayals or the importance of standing your ground, but to offer something deeper. If there's one lesson I've learned, it's this: you must protect what you build. Whether it's your career, your ideas, your reputation, or your personal boundaries, you are always your first and strongest line of defense. Never assume others will act in good faith simply because you do. Plan for setbacks. Prepare for betrayal. But position yourself to win with integrity and foresight. Take a look at your own life. Are there places where you need to speak up? Protect your work? Draw a clear boundary? Maybe it's in your job, your relationships, or a passion project you've invested years into. Whatever it is, don't let someone else claim what's yours. So here's my challenge to you. Stand up for yourself. Leave a comment below, share your story, your thoughts, or even your advice to others. Let's start a real conversation about protecting what matters. Because in the end, the most powerful thing you can build is the courage to defend it.